Now, memory prices have already gone up substantially, and those memory prices are not going to go down because of the AI related demand for the memories. So, that price is going up. That has an impact already on the smartphones and laptops and other appliances. Here, the impact is much more because the memory content or the value is as a percentage of the total BOM is high. 10 to 20% price rise has happened, and we will continue to go up in short term. You could expect the increase in the overall market price of those devices or appliances about 10 to 25%.
Hello and welcome to Macro Decode. China has been curbing the exports of rare earth minerals and magnets, critical technologies, and overseas deals. These curbs are increasingly affecting several sectors in India, including electronics manufacturing. Ashok Chandak, president of India Electronics and Semiconductor Association, is joining us to explain how difficult it has become for the industry to meet its production and export targets due to the curbs. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
China, as I said, has been curbing exports of rare earth minerals and magnets for some time. Now they are also restricting investment deals and technology transfer. For the electronics sector, the supply of which inputs have become scarce of late, and how important are they in manufacturing?
On the rare earth minerals, India particularly is getting impacted for the speakers, microphones, some of the motors, camera actuators, some industrial automation system, infrastructure, power electronics, etc. At the same time, I would like to highlight that sometimes it is misunderstood as a rare earth is a mining problem. Actually, it is not mining problem. It is more of a manufacturing and a processing problem.
Okay.
So India does have some of the rare earth minerals, but we have not mastered the art of
Right.
those processing. Same is the case with various other countries, including Australia, for example. There are a lot of rare earth minerals available. But China has got a much more cost competitive manufacturing process and technology, and that is where they are getting the advantage.
Okay.
So now the challenge is not about the raw material itself, but obviously China controls the dominant share worldwide as
Okay.
they are very cost effective. Other countries are also waking up. They are doing something. And including in India, there are initiatives by government as well as some of the industries looking at how the processing could be done actually.
Right.
Now, the supply chain of these minerals, critical mineral elements, still it is majoritarily controlled by China. But so far, we have not seen any major stoppage of any important manufacturing product actually. The prices have gone up in the market surely because of these controls, but it has not become like a showstopper for anybody so far.
As far as investment and technology transfer is concerned, are there curbs on that and how that is going to affect electronics manufacturing?
See, India used to follow this Press Note 3, which had some restrictions on the nearby bordering countries, their investments. And recently, things have been put more into the kind of a easiness, but still some restriction remains. Now, China side are also controlling now the investments and JVs. Those are going to happen with the Indian entities. So that is creating some trouble actually. In fact, several industries have already echoed a concern, including the automotive industry, plus some of the components those are required for electronics manufacturing, mainly smartphones. There have been some hiccups there. So this is going now on case by case basis. So all these restrictions, those have been put by China or the control measures, that is going to delay some of those investments. There are several machineries, equipments, including some of the components, electronic components. Those are dependent on the some of the China companies. So that is getting into some challenge.
Even when we had Press Note 3 restrictions, I think electronics industry was one of the industry where government has been allowing investments from China. What is the status on that?
In general, I would say things are still in the discussions and progress mode because there are some restrictions. If there is a stake about 10 to 49%, who owns the majority? Who is the controlling entity? So it's clear the controlling entity has to be in India or an Indian entity. And up to 10%, I know it's like more easy to manage now after the relaxation of the Press Note 3.
Look at electronics manufacturing. How much dependent are we on China for imports, for technology altogether?
See, on the technology side, it is not very high dependence From the electronic perspective, what we see is a lot of components, including tooling and some manufacturing equipment, are dependent on China, and particularly into the consumer appliances, consumer products,
Yeah.
including the smartphones, where the costs are very, very sensitive. And that is where the dependencies on China does exist. There are several other countries also, those make similar components and subsystems, may not be as cost effective as China. For example, Taiwan or Korea or Japan, some of the Southeast Asian countries, they also make electronic components, subsystems, some materials, including the PCBs.
Can the alternative markets cover whatever China has been supplying? So, if you look at the kind of inputs that were coming from China, what was the share in terms of percentage and how much the alternative markets can cover?
See, point is very difficult to spell out percentage because it depends on the category of the component and the category of the device. But industry is definitely looking at exploring diversification opportunities. There are countries such as Australia, US, Japan, they could feed the various supply chain related stuff, machines, equipments, and rare earth materials. But to be realistic, the China's position today is multiple decades of investment and ecosystem development. So definitely, we have to appreciate they have done a great work. And there is no single country which can replace everything overnight.
Right.
And the question is also not of replacement, but more of dependency.
Right. When China imposes curbs because it has a dominant position in rare earth magnets and minerals, obviously there will be a crunch and an uncertainty.
Yeah, there would be uncertainty, there would be hiccups. In a short term, there would be problems. People would struggle.
Okay.
And but it is not that it is not solvable, it is resolvable.
Right.
It's going
Okay.
to be difficulty.
Due to the supply shortage, are manufacturers increasingly opting for assembly of imported components or import of finished goods? How will this affect our value addition targets?
Value addition target is dependent on how much we produce locally. Two category of imports, let's say semiconductors, which is not very much dependent on China. There are very few components dependent on China for semiconductors.
Okay.
Semiconductors import is mainly from the companies, those are in US, Europe, or Japan, Korea, and their warehouses in Asia. That's not much impacted. But the very, very low end semiconductor small chips, those are getting impacted because of the China import restriction. Coming to second part, and this is where the challenge is PCBs, for example, and some of the PCB materials. The cost of the PCB materials have gone up, not only because of China topic, but also because of the war related situation where some of the raw materials are coming from there.
Yeah.
They are facing a problem actually. The PCB and the new PCB plants are not yet operational. Same thing on the electronic components, some connectors, those are getting impacted. The finished good import, we haven't seen major spurts so far as the import of the finished goods, but sub assemblies maybe. Some of the companies would start to rely on a Southeast Asia nations. That would happen. But as of now, the industry should continue and is continuing doing these assembly activities within India. Value addition target, I don't think it should get impacted because this is the short term issue.
Okay.
Value addition targets, I'm looking at more on the long term and mid term.
Okay.
As our these electronic component manufacturing system, the semiconductor plants, those are getting into the operations now. They start to operate. Our localization and value addition would go up.
Right.
The important piece remains on a display because we are highly dependent on the China companies actually. That's a piece really is a cause of bit more worry because our India display manufacturing is not stepping up in next 12 to 18 months. There is no major supply. Only one plant was approved recently that's doing. Other activities are more of the display assemblies, not as the core display fabs. So that remains one of the topic which uh, could create still disturbance.
So, what will you do with the display? How will you actually procure those components?
I think that is also some of the other Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan companies are available. Companies will have to negotiate and agree coming through uh, Hong Kong route or China directly import with higher prices or through Southeast Asia sub-assemblies. Something need to be addressed there.
You mentioned about the cost going up. You would have to negotiate with other countries. In the medium term, how much cost can go up for electronic products in India?
See, electronic product cost in India is dependent on three important factors. One is the core semiconductor chips, second is the memory, and third is the rest of the components. Now, memory prices have already gone up substantially, and those memory prices are not going to go down, and that is a worldwide problem because of the AI related demand for the memories. Most of the memory suppliers are moving their capacities to those high bandwidth memory, and that is impacting the other flash and DRAMs in terms of the pricing. So that price is going up. That has an impact already on the smartphones and laptops and other appliances.
Okay.
Here, the impact is much more because the memory content or the value as a percentage of the total BOM is high, where 10 to 20% price rise has happened and we will continue to go up in short term. Other semiconductor components, most of the things what India is using, they are not much impacted in terms of the price rise or disturbances, except some of the CPUs. So that's about few percentage point. And now the other things that is a PCB, which is really getting impacted because of the raw material costs and shortages and the price going up there, and other components. So that has got about 10% of the increment. So this is how we see on electronic overall product to product. You could expect the increase in the overall market price of those devices or appliances about 10 to 25%. Something already has gone up, but over next year we could look at about another 10 to 25% incremental onto those.
Okay. Okay.
Depending on a category to category. For
Right.
example, if you take a washing machine or fridge, the electronic content is much lower than the mobile phones, the smartphones, the energy meters, the other electronic appliances where the content of the electronics is significantly high. This is where I'm saying the price rise about 10% plus is likely to happen further over and above what we see already.
We also hear that rare earth mineral processing industry is also facing a crunch in terms of capital goods like machinery. How will this affect our efforts to process rare earth minerals?
I think these machines coming from China is one aspect. The machines can come from other countries also. It's a question of the processing technology and know-how. So China definitely they have mastered this processing art in terms of making it a very cost effective. Even other countries like US and Australia, they have rare earth minerals they could also process, but the it's not as cost effective.
What about our electronics and semiconductor production targets and export targets? Because of all these curves, how much will we able to meet the targets as per the schedule?
So my view is on a semiconductor side, it does not impact our targets. Our journey is going on. The new plants are getting set up. Electronics manufacturing should reach $400 billion by 2030, and overall as the industry size by 500 billion, considering some components and chips would get manufactured. So on a long-term targets, I don't see any major concern. In a short term, there is a hiccup, definitely.
Yeah.
So in the short term, some manufacturing could get impacted. As the manufacturing gets impacted, maybe some of the exports could get impacted. I would call over next 3 to 6 months to 9 months.
For FY27, what was the target and will you be able to achieve the target?
From the government perspective right now,
Yeah.
we should reach 400 billion manufacturing by 2030. On a semiconductor side, we are looking at consumption of semiconductors by 2030 about $103 billion and manufacturing of about 40 billion plus by 2030. On 27 particularly, I think semiconductor things are on track, both the local manufacturing other things, because most of the plants are getting operational. Two are already operational, two more to go this year, another two more by next year. And
what about electronics in FY27?
Electronics in 27, I think we should be going beyond $200 billion actually. This year itself, considering this hiccup, maybe 200 to 225 billion is possible over 27.
What was the earlier target for FY27 for electronics?
I just looking at the 5 to 10% correction there maybe because of the short-term hiccups.
What do you think the government should do to support the industry?
While the disbursements happen to the industries, maybe government could do little more stringent follow-ups and reviews so that these industries taking the incentives from the government, they are properly utilized and they speed up the things. The semiconductor related incentive, the second portion of the ISM 2.0 or Semicon India program next phase should get announced very soon. Then giving some extra impetus to the specialty material ecosystem and some specific plan to encourage the capital equipment and a manufacturing process technology R&D. Academia's institutes are getting funding and other support from government. Government could become a little bit more stringent. The accountability on these companies.
Is there something that the government can do to take up this issue with the Chinese government and help out in terms of the curves?
I would look at is encouraging and driving the Indian companies localization.
Right.
So government could encourage more faster the EU FTA, the US FTA, or the trade deal is coming up. So government could look at those alternative markets where country to country dialogue could shape up and make it more easier so that we explore those alternates.
Okay. Lastly, does this challenge also present an opportunity for the industry to integrate with the manufacturing sector to work on supply chain resilience and technological independence?
Absolutely. We have to look at scaling up the manufacturing faster for all the sectors, just like we have seen for mobile phones. What can government do? They do faster approval, they do predictable policies, the infrastructure support, the R&D policies, incentives for component, they can disburse faster. All those things government can do, but I would put more onus on industry to
Yeah.
really look at how do we accelerate component manufacturing? How do we accelerate PCB and substrate manufacturing? Get into the display ecosystem, upgrade chemicals and gases ecosystem to meet the purity requirements, plus rare earth processing and a magnet ecosystem. These are the things could be done, and we could achieve this by creating a focus on a design capability, domestic quality consciousness and quality excellence, startup and IP creations from a semiconductor side, manufacturing process and skilled manufacturing manpower trainings. Those are the things could be done. India's semiconductor and electronics journey should not be viewed as a race of a catch up or a dependency onto one or two countries. We should look at this as a more long term capability building exercise. And current supply chain should remind us that challenge is in true competitiveness, which can come only not by manufacturing product, but owning a technology, owning materials, components. So we have to respond strategically.
Right. So, Chinese curves obviously have affected the industry, the electronics industry mainly, and we would probably see more price hikes in electronic products as well. But the industry should actually take this challenge as an opportunity to work on supply chain resilience and technological independence. Thank you for joining me on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.